and train their models, and suddenly the models could tell you whether the dog is a Chihuahua or a bulldog. And then we started working with some e-commerce companies, and they were trying to, find out and recommend the best products to people. And then we started working with companies building RAG pipelines, and now we are in the agentic memory era. So what I've tried to do is collect stories from that beginning time to now, and unfortunately, the beginning time stories are still true. So one of the things that we encounter is like, you have a large collection of PDFs, large collection of images, or a large amount of videos. Now, when you just have tabular data, you can, just do a SQL star and you can see. And the pagination works, and you can just scroll through the data, you can sample it. But when it comes to PDFs or images or videos, it is unbelievable how complicated it is just to navigate. You want to see like every fifth image? Oh, well, too bad. By the time you get to the 100th one, you're going to get up and leave it, right? But then, if you can't see your data set, how do you know how you're going to fine tune your models? How do you know how much noise there is? How do you know whether you have it well represented or not? So this used to be, this was like one of the first things for, we started with images and videos first. So we heard that a lot. And then I'm like, okay, by now everyone must have solved this problem. But now we hear the same thing with PDFs. And so as much as, we have chatbots booking our reservation, we can't freaking get through PDF data sets. Then there was also these, is this a pointer here or? Oh no, it goes forward, okay. So then, you can have a lot of labels on the data set, and then sometimes some parts are not labeled, sometimes the labels are incorrect. I don't know what I'm pressing, it's kind of doing its own thing. Oh, it was you. I'm like, what did I do here? But yeah, so then you have like, labels that just come out of nowhere, they point to nowhere, and there are no checks. This last one is my favorite. I spoke to, at some point when we were trying to figure out what's our ICP, I spoke to a lot of agriculture companies. And you know how like they go run data sets to collect, growing plants. And what they want to figure out is where are the weeds in the plant so they can just spray on the weeds, or what are the right strawberries so that their robots can pick the right strawberries. Except they would send the tractor out, collect the data, and then they wanted to train the models and do whatever. And then next year they would do the same thing. It's like, why didn't you use the previous stuff? What changed? Oh, we didn't know how we had named the data set, and we didn't know which drives the data was in, and it was harder to find the data than send the tractors out to collect the data again. I was like, you guys do realize it sounds ridiculous, right? I mean, software, it's supposed to be the easiest thing to script and find or index. I mean, come on, 50 years of databases at this point. But it's the reality. It's the reality even today. Now, have any of you guys encountered any of these problems? Okay, well, I see a lot of nodding heads. So it's not just me. And why does that happen? I mean, when we were just talking about banking transactions and people buying, putting things in shopping carts and purchasing, this wasn't a problem, was it? I think the problem traces back to the fact that AI has exposed something different. You need to go and access a variety of data to make AI work like humans. You can't just do tabular information anymore. You need to bring in all your documents, you need to parse those documents, you need to bring your images if you really want it to behave like humans. Otherwise, just accept the hallucinating chatbot and move on. And when you have to do that, that's when you realize that all of these different data types going into those applications have to go through this Frankenstein's data monster. This data infrastructure, basically you have to bring together, first of all, you got to align all the stakeholders, then ask them where they store their data. Some might have tables, some might have Mongo databases, some might have key value stores, some might have experimented, maybe if they are, adventurous into graph database territory, they might have cloud buckets, they might have a dozen ways of naming data in their various folders. You got to bring all that together, process it into the right format, and then get it to those applications if you really want to see the benefits. And it can take, so we work with a Fortune 50 retailer, and together with them we compute it. It can take a team almost a year to set all this stuff up, and $2 million per team to do this stuff. Imagine the opportunity cost, because in 1 year, I mean, OpenAI is probably like, we don't even recognize it at that time. That's how fast models are moving. And we're talking about agents everywhere, right? Like I had a lot of time on the highway to read all those billboards today. But so that really is the crux of the problem. We can get as advanced with our models, we can get as advanced with our compute. If we don't solve data problems, this just continues. And in fact, I have some more stories about what that Frankenstein thing leads to. And one of them is the schema. So we ran into this problem helping one of our customers ingest data into into our database. And I'll talk about what our database does afterwards briefly. But we were essentially enabling bringing different data types, bringing different sources of data together. And we realized for a table name products with a field name ID, one team had it as a string, the other team had it as an integer, and they couldn't, it took everybody so long to figure out why they were not seeing all the products that they expected to see when they queried it. But it was really nasty. I mean, like, before AI made it a thing, they never had to bring their data sets together. So somehow, ID was a string in one and a number in the other database with the same name. So, and I bet, how many of you have seen that happen, like the same name mismatch? Okay. Then of course there's the null explosion. You never know. Sometimes you set a not null condition, sometimes you set, and then you write Python, and Python quietly hides all of those problems, right? So yes, so unless, as much as I love the idea of vibe coding, I feel like if you haven't suffered through these problems, how are you ever gonna find them in that vibe coded mess? And then, of course, this was another one. I was talking to someone, a very large company, and actually it was a industrial automation sort of use case. And they are like, oh, our teams are firefighting. We can't figure out what the problem is. And then, I had by that time learned about what their data infrastructure was like. And it was that spaghetti mess that I showed you earlier. And then they're like, well, something somewhere is going wrong. And I'm like, why the heck do you think I'm talking to you to replace that mess? But that's the reality. And the problem is these sort of bugs, when they show up, there are some people who are responsible for debugging, and the leadership never really realizes the pain of that debugging and how avoidable it was if they could come together to make that big decision of changing. I understand it's never easy to uproot your data infrastructure and change it, but sometimes when it's causing you so much trouble, you really got to ask, is it worth sticking to legacy? And then, like fast forward to our, star RAG versions that we see now. One of the common problems that showed up like early on in the early days was, well, suddenly the important financial information started becoming available to contractors who are not allowed to see it, or some employees or interns who are not allowed to see some complex financial models in a company. And why was that happening? So everyone was excited. RAG retrieval helps you surface information that was lost in documents. But as you are, so there are two, like what this thing shows are 2 points where you are essentially exposing, or you have the possibility of exposing if you did not exposing if you didn't build guardrails around stuff. One is when you are fine tuning your model. You are giving it all sorts of data. It's learning every time you ask some questions unless you tell it not to. And so it learns from there. And the other one is you took all the documents, okay? You embedded them, you put them in your vector database. So the next time someone came asking questions, if you did not restrict who is allowed to see what, if you didn't have a way to restrict it, well, of course it was going to surface information that was most relevant to the question, regardless of whether you were allowed to see it or not. So secure RAG, that wasn't. And what really, what's the expectation there? Permission structures in companies are really complicated. They're complex graph structures simply because a user might directly have access to a document. A user might have access to a document through a group that they belong in. A group might be part of another group through which it gets it. But ultimately, when you are returning the results, you have to be able to apply those permissions. And it's not as easy as an attribute filter. You cannot just put a filter in your vector search and get that going. And of course, and this needs to be applied not just to text, but multimodal data. So continuing on with some more examples. This was our own documentation chatbot. We're like very excited. Let's use our vector search and put this chatbot on our documentation. And for some reason, one of the cloud users, we had just launched our self-serve platform, and our payment was manual, so we send out invoices and stuff, integrating automation and all that on it. And so someone decided to ask our chatbot, I just got charged for Aperture DB. I think I didn't cancel my subscription. I never used it. Would it be possible to refund? So not only did the person didn't use it, which is already, unhappy situation. And then they're like, okay, well, can you issue a refund? And they ask that to our documentation chatbot. And the chatbot very conveniently tells them, we can refund your most recent charge. Never mind that the person never paid anything, but we can refund and cancel subscription, and the user account will be canceled. And none of this stuff is automated, right? It's just like happily giving that person this information. We don't know it's giving that information because we're just kind of like figuring all this out and making all these connections. And so that person writes to us, and we figured we were at least logging the queries of the chatbot. So we knew what the question was, what the answer was. And then we had to kind of go to one of the partner companies we work with and introduce guardrails. Do not answer anything about payments. And then this is something that I always run into because I'm very strongly in the graph world of things. I think in graphs. I'm always imagining how things connect. I mean, even when my older daughter, when she was growing up, I used to imagine the neurons in her brain connecting. I was learning about neural networks. But the general notion in the industry is graphs are scary and slow. And now the problem is our agents need context. And context very much invariably looks like a graph. So now what do we do? So one, a lot of people have data in relational databases, sometimes in key value. So I have actually spoken to teams where they really wanted a graph because that's where you realize connections. And so they created a pretend graph and had a team of 30 people maintaining that pretense. And basically making sure that all of the things that came in, there was a layer on top that would track the connections through foreign keys and make sure the data was consistent in that way. And now it's like, and now a lot of their systems rely on that graph querying to get them answers. So now that's why. What have we done? And I really think that the world of graphs is really misunderstood. Have any of you tried using graphs or see the point behind knowledge graphs nowadays? Okay, a few of you. I would care to say that a lot of people, when the moment you have so many foreign key traversals, you really should reevaluate. But anyway, So with all of those problems, maybe I should kind of give you a possible solution. Because I mean, I'm a startup founder. I cannot help talking about the product. Um, and so the way we solve this problem is essentially providing people with a new database that was developed for the very reason of supporting multimodal AI. And the way we realized to do this is it's the first vector graph hybrid database that natively recognizes multimodal data types and provides the sort of integrations you need to connect and build AI applications. And how we do that, we natively recognize data types like images, videos. You're literally adding, add an image or add a video or add a clip to Aperture DB. And we are soon going to introduce documents and audio as primary types too, but right now you can do blobs. And it's cloud agnostic, you can work in any clouds. The second thing we realize is any unstructured collection of information always comes with some metadata, and invariably that's connected. And I'll give you an example. In industrial automation, it's very common to see, there are cameras installed in a factory floor. They are in different sections of a warehouse. So company owns warehouse. Warehouse has cameras. Cameras take videos. Videos see people. You can see, like if you actually drew that diagram, it's going to be a connected. It's going to be a graph. And so we realized that when we looked through actually a collection of different applications, and that's why we used an in-memory graph to represent all of this information. So including the multimodal data, even that's represented in the graph. Any application information is represented in this graph, and they are all connected. And because it's an in-memory graph, it can scale and be really fast. The third aspect is, of course, when you're talking about unstructured data, you can actually search it by vector search. And so we built in a vector database. And then, of course, it was unfair to expect users to talk to three systems and get their responses. So we built a unified API to query all of these things together. And what that unique combination does is it saves you, instead of doing 3 to 7 calls to get the one collection of data that you're looking for, you get it in one query. And it gets you the right data fast. And by fast, I mean you literally have 10 millisecond lookup times. Even if you use Aperture DB just as a vector database, it's 2 to 10 times faster than some of the popular alternatives out there. And it supports different algorithms and distance metrics. If you wanted to use Aperture as the memory optimized graph, or to construct your knowledge graphs or implement graph rag or agent memory, you have a very low latency memory optimized design. I mean, our lookup times are 15 millisecond on a billion scale graph. And yes, that means we've scaled to billions of objects and connections, and it's really high throughput. You can actually do 65,000 conditional adds per second in the database, which is, by the way, very useful when you're building agent memory and trying to personalize it constantly with new information. And of course, we wanted to make sure that users could deploy it wherever they are. So that's why it works in virtual private clouds. We have a managed service, and then you can bring your own cloud. And if you want to try Aperture DB, the best way to do it is the Aperture DB cloud. But we also have a community edition. And right now we are on Google Marketplace. At some point, we'll be on the other marketplaces too. So just a quick preview of how it's done. It's going to be hard for me to show from laptop. Let's see if can I come here and do it? No, I just wanted to navigate from here. So here we essentially have a movie database example. And what we've created here is we have movies connected to actors, crew, professionals who are there. We have movie posters. I even have a video, and then there are embeddings to search. And on the same UI, you can see you have image, video, document search. So, that first problem we talked about of how do you navigate multimodal data sets. You have a UI way of doing it. We even have a semantic search tab here that will let you search across different modalities by asking natural language questions. You can just do simple point and click and enable searches on here I have some movie posters. As you can see, the images have some bounding boxes, and you have a search similar button. The way you can do that very easily is on our cloud interface, and even all the stuff like the workflows and stuff are open source. You can build your own, but here you have ready-made, I ran face detection, I used FaceNet model, and the embeddings were generated as well when the faces were detected. So you can use some of our readily available workflows and get all this information. So you can very easily upload your image or PDF or video data sets from cloud buckets, run our embedding generation, run the object detection, and you already have a searchable data set even before you introduce any other metadata. And when you do that, you detected all this stuff, but you can also search for similar images by just clicking there. You can do some custom queries, like I think here I have done find all the posters with Johnny Depp in it. So if you have label data, we also have integration with Label Studio. You can actually go and label things yourself, and you can see that there are you see some of the movies that pop up. It's always nice to show a movie data set. You see all these colorful pictures. You can have videos running in the same thing, and you can do queries like, well, remove any videos that have a smoking scene in it. That's like a very common query you can't show. And then you can also query videos and say, okay, I just want a sampling of the video, so give me 1 frame per second. All those queries are natively supported in the database. The other example I want to quickly show you is building an agent on top. So we have, we went to a conference recently, and we talked to the organizers, and they're like, it'll be nice if people don't have to, this is the 6th iteration of the conference. It'll be nice if we don't have to scan through YouTube for the past speakers and try to find their talks. So we're like, well, let's see if we can ingest the speaker and talk information in ApertureDB, get their PDFs, get the videos in, and allow smarter searches. So we created this. I worked with one of our community members, Aisha. This is something you guys can just go on and try. You can find, let's say, I want to find talks by speakers from Google. And right now we just have 2024 information. We have an agent built with LangGraph and Gemini. It uses Gemini as the embedding model and the LLM. So you can see it goes, queries, and composes the result, and it also gives you the links. And you can do video semantic search. We use 12 Labs models to do that. And we are going to keep growing this, and this is open source, and we're hoping we'll be able to work with the community to build this further. So that was just a quick preview of all the things you can do. And solving that problem of secure RAG, the complex graph permissions, when you have, when your one database gives you vector and graph both, it becomes really easy to do it. And so that's when you can have, you can build a secure chatbot by making sure that the documents that are returned are documents that are allowed for the user to see. So what are we building now? The platform we have provides the right interface to access the right memory. Agent memory is like the next, big thing as we get into the agentic world. We already have the data foundation for it at a scalable enterprise level. So now we are focusing on, offering the right memory interface. Obviously, users, validation from users is the best thing you can get. And when they like it, that's the best thing we can have as startups. So I would love to have you guys try ApertureDB, give us feedback. That QR code should take you to a collection of our links on how you can join the community, how you can subscribe to our newsletter, and please go ahead and try. And I'm happy to take any questions. I think hitting the reality. Like, there's a lot of hype in all the cool agentic stuff you can do. And I think the coding agents have, like, they've really made life easier for people who can use it. But getting into the reality, going beyond text, actually going from the shallow intelligence to deep intelligence, which is going to require addressing the data problems head on. I mean, I don't think people can postpone it as much anymore. Um, Doing that, observability, we have heard, is a big one. But one thing I really hope people pay attention to is how much energy or power are we using for all of this stuff. A lot of it, I think, if you did the queries right and if you got the data right, you could avoid stuffing everything in context windows. Um, and running models for every small thing, because you can cache certain things. We've done that all over these years. Why not now? But I think people have to become conscious and do it. There has to be a question on how much energy is this consuming, and does that really make sense? I think I was at an event recently and someone mentioned a squirrel does so many computations before it jumps from one branch of the tree to another in like what, zero point zero 0.04 watts or something. And an LLM doing, like, figuring out a plan to jump from one place to another would have consumed, like, I don't know, he had some crazy number. And I'm like, finally someone is talking about this. So I think those would be some really good avenues to explore.
So my question is, what is your ideal customer? Is it the developers that help an enterprise that to build a rack systems, or it's for no code users that just want to get to know about
I think right now where we are in our development cycle, we are still more for like the AI teams in, I mean, medium to large companies. Our user experience still needs work for it to become completely accessible to low code, no code users building any and every pipeline. So we introduced one workflow, which is our RAG chatbot, where you just give a URL and it'll run the workflow, and out comes the ability to just chat with whatever that URL contained. That's the most we have done in terms of making it really simple. So we are working on it. We're simplifying it so that people can just click, click, click and get to, like, searching the data. But it still requires an understanding of, well, there is a database. Uh, you have to run some workflows. It's not like, hey, I want to build video semantic search. Do what you need to do. I think that's the next level. When we get to that level, that's when it'll become like anyone can use it.
it. So do you guys provide a Python SDK or anything like that?
Yeah, we have a Python SDK. Now through our AI workflows, we have MCP server, we have SQL Server plugins too. So in fact, even though we have a graph interface, you can query the data in Aperture DB with our SQL plugin. And there is a SQL ingestion plugin too. So if you are migrating data from SQL, you can do that. And we just got a customer who's moving from, who we are moving them from MongoDB to us. So we are going to have that plugin as well.
So, for example, if enterprise is using MongoDB or other SQL, is it help with all the connection with the original database?
So, excuse me. So yeah, we have now the ability to migrate information from that into Aperture. Because if you want to bring information from different places and you want to connect and see the connections, you kind of have to, migrate or set up regular ingestion. Um, for the large data types, there is of course an option, because sometimes when you have petabytes of images or videos, you don't want to create copies. So then we can link to the original place, but as a multimodal AI database, we give a guarantee in terms of transaction support. So like everything we manage will be consistent. If you don't move, large data into Aperture DB, then that's something we can't guarantee because someone could delete it from outside. But that's a choice people make because most of the times people don't delete things.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.